again, my question here is, what is heaven to you guys? What are you considering heaven?
Okay. Well, before I answer that again, I'm gonna just state clearly, you can, believe whatever you want to believe. We're not gonna take it away from you. And if you believe, everybody dies and they don't come back, or they do, to say them, that it's not our job to debate that with anybody. Our responsibility on this platform is to teach people the Hebraic understanding of the culture and lifestyle of y'all, and in this specific topic that we're talking about, life and death, heaven and hell. Okay. So, like we've expressed before, heaven, like it's written in the GBT, heaven is a state. It starts off as a state of consciousness. Okay. And the state of consciousness we are connected to is something that is universal to all mankind. And this state of consciousness is given to us by Yor. And when we awaken into it and we possess the discernment between right and wrong, and we begin to apply the instructions given to us in the Tanakh, at that point, when we reach a certain level of righteousness, you experience what's referred to as a crossover, and you cross over into that heavenly state of consciousness that manifests itself on earth. Okay, and this is what the inspired prophets and messianic persons just taught regarding heaven on earth, and what's referred to Revelation as experiencing heaven on earth. It is a reality that you experience, but first have to start right here. You have to begin to see it, and we taught how Christianity and Catholicism, for years they taught that heaven is another place separate from our experience here, and that hell is another place separate from our experience here. And that's where you go, if you're good on earth, you physically die, you go to the heaven. If you're bad and wicked, you physically, die and go to hell. And how, the spiritual leader of this world, the Pope, they acknowledge that, hey, that teaching that we've been teaching for thousands of years is not right. Heaven is an elevated state of understanding, and hell is a place that you create based on your lower level of understanding. That's what they came back and changed. But it's based on the truth that has been taught in the scriptures for generations. And in the scriptures, which is what our culture is founded in, the Hebrew scriptures, they don't talk about a place of heaven that you physically go to or resurrect from after you die. It's a spiritual state of understanding and consciousness. And at this place right here, this life is the ultimate objective, what we're experiencing here. And when they talk about death in the scriptures, they always talk about Sheol, which is just you physically dying and going to the graveyard. And they don't talk about blessings or benefits at that point that you experience. Now, in everlasting life, Ben-Ami talks about individuals who are Holy Spirits, and those that, when they physically make transition, at that point, because they were in that elevated state of consciousness, when that happens, after they physically die, their spirit lives on to consciously influence our environment. And this is what you read about when you go into the scriptures, and you read about King Saul, when he asked the witch of Endor if he can summon this specific spirit back, and the specific spirit was the spirit of Samuel. And she realized that she made a mistake and messed up, because this individual was a Holy Spirit. And according to the teachings, she wasn't supposed to be a divine and resurrect these type of spirits the way that she did. And Samuel came back, just told Saul, it don't matter what you do at this point. You've already made a mistake and messed up. Now there's a new king on the throne. It's King David. And it's the same spirit that, Yeshua was in when he was on the Mount of Transfiguration, and he brought back Moses in front of him. His disciples saw him and realized, man, Yeshua had a power to manifest the spirit of Moses, because these individuals, when they made transition, they became Holy Spirits, and they began to influence this environment in the realm that they're in. But it's this realm that they're influencing. Okay, so just like you said, we don't know anybody right here on this earth that we know that physically died, left, came back, tell us what happens after you die. We can't physically prove that, but we live according to faith on what the good word has taught us in the scriptures. And that's
Okay.
all.
Let me ask you this, Zakai. Is the book of Tanakh or Enoch, is that an acceptable book for the Hebrew Israelite?
Well, in our community, there are individuals who have read the book of Enoch.
But have you read it?
And there's 3 books of Enoch, because when you say book of Enoch, you got to be
Yeah.
specific. There's 3 different types.
Yeah, but I
Symbolic,
mean,
Hebrew, the Ethiopic, and there's the Hebrew. So which one are you talking about specifically?
but I'm pretty sure all of them have the same premise, pretty much. The story is going to pretty much align the same. The days, how the time works, just the time in general, how the luminaries work, and Enoch he speaks on being in a place with Yahweh and the angels, and he even speaks on what is his name, Abel, Cain's brother, and says how he's waiting on that time of judgment, basically. And he even speaks on seeing the elect being in the seat of Yahweh. Right? He speaks on all these things in his book.
Mm-hmm.
And so what is your take on that book in reference to what we're talking about?
Okay. Well, I brought this up before about the book of Enoch and how the individual named Kanok, which means to be dedicated in Hebrew, he was the 7th individual who was in the alignment as far as the generations from Adam, 7th individual. And based on his servitude, he reached that point that we're talking about today, where he crossed over and he was so dedicated, so righteous that y'all said, hey, I want you to ascend to this higher plane of consciousness, this higher heavenly state, this higher realm. Okay. And that's what it is mentioned in the book of Genesis, where it said, and Enoch walked with Yah.
Mm-hmm.
It's very simple, but it's really saying that he went to a higher state of vibration. He elevated to a higher plane or higher realm. Okay. And I mentioned you can, anybody on this platform can go and read those writings and get your insights from that. But like I just mentioned, because none of us have made that journey, and we don't know anybody who has gone up and come back, we can't say in the absolute that this is the reality, of heavens beyond this plane that we're on right now, and share that testimony. All we can go on is based on what the scriptures teach. And the scriptures, the Tanakh specifically, and the Torah as a foundation is what we have to go on as Hebrew Israelites for guidance and insight for our culture. That's all we can do. Okay, and we can speculate all day, but based on what the good book says, the Torah and Tanakh, the ultimate goal is for us to reach this heavenly state of consciousness on earth right now.